Hello everyone, my name is StarMax and I'll be showing you all today how to make trails and flares with the most recent processes. This tutorial assumes that you know how to extract files from .nuts and etc. So if you don't know how to do that, or get your own dump for that matter, there's a million tutorials on Game Banana for that, so feel free to search on there, since this is a pretty basic thing that just needs you to understand those principles. What you're going to need for this process is detailed here. You're going to need the Sm4sh Explorer plus your dump, Sm4sh, 3ds Max for flares, and noesis for flares. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to want to open your Sm4sh Explorer, which I'll do like this to show you that it loads properly. Data, fighter, search wherever fighter you want to take trails from. For this case, I'm going to choose link, effect, link, trail. There'll be this and this. Sword trails are known as traces. There's two different types here. There's trace and trace add, and then turn trace and trace add. Trace, as you can assume, is generic attacks, while turn trace is up B, or his up special, spinning attack. You're going to want to hit extract for this, and you'll find it into your in this directory here. You want to go to whatever your Sm4sh Explorer file is, extract, data, fighter, scroll down to your person, effect, same exact directory as before. You'll just see it here now. So once you're done with that, you can open it up in whatever your image editing software is. Mine is going to be Adobe. And you have the base file here. The base will be fully like this, and then the add file should have a black background. Now I'll tell you a bit more about that later, because that's you wouldn't see that in gameplay. You're probably thinking, wait, none of the trails have black on them. Well, I'll explain that when we get to that. But so you'll see here that you've pretty much got, you know, the basic trail. It's got the colors and whatnot, but you also don't see all this blue. That's because there's an alpha layer that obscures those details so that it cuts out certain parts. That way, if you were to save it, like so, save as .dds with noesis as DTA5, it shows up as it would in game because of the alpha layer. That's really important if you're going to try and manipulate it without saving it to another format. Now that being said, you can also just do this, Control C to a new thing, and then hit V to get the alpha layer alone, or you can click on the RGB itself, go to new, and then work without the alpha layer because it doesn't take the alpha layer with it. They're separate things. So yeah, if you were to save this as a DDS, doesn't matter what I call it because it's not going to do anything. It'll show the entirety of it without the alpha file. So be sure to be aware of that if you're trying to make trails for the first time. The alpha file is basically essential for anything that you're just going to be doing recolors of. That way you don't have to take any details out. So let's say I want to do, what's a good color for Link I haven't done yet? Well, I could do orange. Let's try that. So the best way to do this, there's many different ways, and I'll detail them all. Usually, you're just going to want to do the entire thing. So just take your square select or whatever you want to do, or control all, you know, that sort of thing. Go to adjustments under image. This is for Photoshop. GIMP is kind of similar, but also really bad, so you probably can figure it out based on what I'm doing. This is for Photoshop users. You've got several different options you can do to change colors respectively. I use them all on occasion just to make sure that the color blends perfectly, but for Link, since there's only two different tones, you can just do hue and sat and then mess with this slider and you'll get basically what you want. But as you can see here, if I wanted to do orange, I'd have a hard time because it's orange on the outside but red on the inside, which means that if I were to try and do the inverse with orange on the outside, it'd still be gross and you would have yellow instead. So this is where the second tool comes in handy. There's also the color balance. You can change the colors themselves to be more similar so that they don't have that problem. See, now it's all blue, and if I were to try and change the hue sat, it would have a much lesser value. Now that's not normally what I would do. I was just using that as an example. For this instance, I would probably end up going down to selective color and messing with the cyans, because the cyans themselves are a different value from blue, so you can just manipulate what you need while also keeping it the same. So like, you can change the background. Normally this just takes a while and it's some patience to get to the right color, but yeah, It's not that big. Oh, that's actually really nice. I like that. Let's do that. So now that you've got this and you're like, okay, I'll go ahead and see what I can do with this. Well, if you're satisfied with that, next step is the add file. Now the add file works differently from the base file in that it completely ignores black. If you haven't noticed yet, there's a reason I don't do black trails anymore. I used to because I didn't know this, but I don't do them anymore because you lose detail, first off, and second off, the add file just doesn't exist. So you need to have white or something. It can't be all black and minimal details. The black itself is very important because it shows what is reduced. It's kind of like the alpha file, just it was laid onto this directly. Since you can't exactly run around this the same way, what I would suggest to do is you take whatever color is the main part, which in this case is green for me, and do a gradient map, which makes black the base and green instead of blue. This is really useful. I'm not sure if GIMP has this. I'm going to assume it does, but I don't know. Then you go ahead and mess with the level so that it becomes brighter and it's more close to the hue you want. I'd say it's pretty close. You can also mess with brightness and contrast in case it's not your tone, or vibrance in case you want the saturation to be awful or really bad and then brighter sometimes. It's finicky. Works sometimes though. So now that you've got both your base and add files done, my suggestion from here is to go ahead and save the add file as a PNG. So I guess I'll just do mods off of and then example like in English. So here's the add file. That'll just save as a PNG, whereas for this you have to save it as a DTX5 through this program here. I don't know exactly how or where I found this, but I know that Adobe does not have it built in. So in case you're using Adobe, go look for this if you don't have it already. It's the NVIDIA DDS format. Just search that up and you'll find this. It's a driver you can just slap onto Adobe and it'll work fine. So now that we've got our little trails done, they're actually pretty nice. I like that. We're going to want to work on a flare because naturally the sword is blue. Link's sword is blue and this trail itself is green. So it's not going to work very well. It's going to clash heavily. That's where we open lovely 3ds Max. On Game Banana, there's a model import file. I can just include this little script here for it so that you don't have to go searching for it. I'll probably do that in the description because this is easy and not really worthy of external looking. You're going to import a NUD. Now, import the model. Now this is also, let me take a breather from this real fast. You're also going to want to go to fighter effect, fighter model, and then sword trace. This is actually misleading because this clearly Ike and Link were made early in the process, so their files are named flink sword trace, whereas for 90% of the other people, like blah blah blah, where's Marth? There it is. Marth is just sword flare. Don't get those confused. They're the exact same thing, just different file types. You want to extract the NUD because that's what you'll be editing. You'll be editing the vertex colors. I'll explain that later too, of this. So let's see. If I wanted to find it, go to the location of it, which is usually just under the same file that it was before when you were looking for the trails. Effect, link, model, this thing, that thing. So go ahead and close that. Now you'll see what looks like the hilt of his blade, not the hilt, the actual blade part of the Master Sword. There's two different layers to it. You've got the back layer, which is usually just the glow, and then the front layer, which is actually over the sword. So it doesn't look at all like it does in game. Again, I'll explain that because it's not the exact same. It uses a different texture. In fact, I'll show you that later. There's a lot of things that come later in the process. I'll explain it all. You want to grab this part, vertex it, and then once you see them all highlighted, you're going to want to take it to the same color that you have as the trail. My way of doing this is probably just, look at that, grab a snipping tool, snip it, and take it over here so that you see the RGB values. I'll go ahead and circle those. What was the last one? That's why I always snip it, because I'm so bad at remembering things. Okay. Yeah. So, see? It's pretty green now. That works well for the highlight, but it doesn't work well for the inside of the flare because you don't want them to be the same color. You want them to be close, but the flare on the inside needs to be a lot brighter. So the way of doing that would probably just be 69 and then lightening it a lot. No, I don't want to do that. I just want to click on the skin. So see, now it actually looks like a differently colored flare. This is actually all it takes to do this. Here, go ahead to export. Of course, it's going to make me look for it. Place it in an easy to find location, which in case I just do the same thing all the time. Name it whatever you feel like, but I always name mine flare. Make sure this is Z up, not Y up. Usually 3ds Max does it as Y up instinctively. Then close that. Then you're going to want to go to noesis. I'm going to open and close everything first. Find wherever that is, that file you just saved off. It's going to take a while. Double click it and look at it in the viewer. And also see that glow I was talking about only applies to one side. That's because it does, but through model information we can make it apply to both. So right click it, export, day, call out a export complete, close it. And once that's done, now on to the fun part, which is Sm4sh. So I kind of got to give a disclaimer. If you have the newest version of Sm4sh, you actually can't do flare modding. So I'll go ahead and show you how to do it with the old forge that you can do it with. So first thing you want to do is you're going to find that flare you had earlier, the actual vanilla flare, not the one that you've modded. Go ahead and open the NUD for it, and you'll see there's nothing there. That's a lie. Go to View, Render Settings, and change it to Vertex color. Now there's this glowy thingy on the floor that just kind of seems to be there. It's pretty neat. Go ahead and open the flare that you already just made. It'll be like whatever name you had it, out.day. Double click it, ignore all that, hit import. And now you'll see it's overlaid really nicely. Ooh, fancy dancy. From here, you're going to want to go ahead and do, this is the vanilla model, model 0, and this is the one we've made. You want to open each of these polygons, right click, copy material, and copy it to respective form of the model you made. Copy material, and ta-da. Now it should blend really nicely. It should almost look identical in regards to color, but it's cyan because it's green on blue, naturally. You want to go right click, save as. I did that step pretty quickly. Model.nud. You don't really need to have it saved of anything. And now that's all it took. Now it's technically done. So on comes the next step of making the trails into actual applicable files. So it's a very similar process as to what we just did with the flare. You go ahead and go and find the folder, effect, person, trail. Oh, I can show this too. So that's actually what the outside of the flare looks like. Much like the add file of the trail, it cuts out the black. So now it's just going to look like that around the edges. Pretty neat. But anyways, back to the trail part. That's the base file. And then you open the add file. That's the add file. The first thing you want to do, since there's really only one thing you can do, is texture, replace. Find whatever one you've already modded. Add it there. And it'll look pretty bad, but that's only because we can't save RGB files. I'll show this actually. We can't save RGB files as PNG because they don't keep the alpha. So you can't do that. It has to be TTX5 and the quality of the image will deteriorate ever so slightly. But it's not enough to actually show up in gameplay, so it's not even a big deal. Do the same thing to the add file. Should look identical because you saved it as a PNG, which is what the original file was. And then go to save nut. The easiest way to do this part is via taking these that you have here, dragging them onto and copying into the file, and then just double clicking so it saves the name. It does it faster and it's rather easy to do. Your flare and trail are now done. I'm not even making that up. They are done. Now the next thing to do is to slap them into your Sm4sh as new files, like so, and build it. So yeah, show you when I get the end game for that. And would you look at that? Easy peasy lemon squeezy, yeah. Really good looking trail with almost no effort, really. That's just how it works now. But as you can see, the flare is now pretty consistent along the board. I'll show you the other side too, since some of them have a problem with that. And the trail itself, pretty solid actually. This is a really nice color. Huh. Not bad. But yeah, that's really all it takes to make a trail and a good flare.